A luxury car dealer laughs and disgraces a black millionaire who wants to buy a pricey car but quickly turns pale when he learns who her son is. He never saw this twist coming. The gleaming showroom of Elite Motors sparkled under the afternoon sun, its floor-to-ceiling windows displaying rows of pristine luxury vehicles that caught every ray of light. Among them stood a metallic silver Aston Martin Vantage, its curves seeming to beckon Elara Bennett as she walked through the glass doors. Dorian Thompson, the dealership's owner, stood behind the main counter as Elara approached the Aston Martin. He barely glanced in her direction, instead continuing his conversation with another salesperson while occasionally letting out a booming laugh that seemed to bounce off the walls. The dealership's other customers, mostly older white men in expensive suits accompanied by younger women hanging on their arms, moved about the space with the easy familiarity of those accustomed to luxury. They nodded to Dorian in recognition, members of an exclusive club that operated on unspoken rules and assumptions. Elara noted their behavior with amusement and determination, recognizing the social dynamics and preparing herself for the challenge. "Excuse me," she eventually said, running her hand along the car's smooth exterior. "I'd like to know more about this model." Dorian turned slowly, his blue eyes sweeping her appearance with unconcealed disdain. Despite her elegant attire and sophisticated bearing, his lip curled slightly as he responded, "Perhaps she'd be more comfortable at our used car location across town." His voice dripped with condescension. "This particular vehicle is rather exclusive. The Vantage represents the pinnacle of British engineering and luxury." Elara's spine stiffened imperceptibly, the silk of her gown rustling softly with the movement. Still, her voice remained steady, honed by years of dealing with men who underestimated her. "I'm quite familiar with Aston Martin's reputation," she replied, her tone professional and measured. "I'm particularly interested in this model's performance specifications and available customization options." Dorian's laugh echoed through the showroom again, directed at her. "Ma'am, this Aston Martin costs more than most people make in 5 years. I wouldn't want to waste your time." He turned to his colleague, sharing a knowing smirk. "You're wasting it right now," Elara replied, her voice now reaching the ears of the other customers in the dealership. "And you'll waste it until you come here and show me this car." Dorian's amusement turned to irritation, his carefully maintained veneer of sophistication cracking to reveal something uglier beneath. He rushed to the black woman in front of him, a fake smile plastered on his face for the sake of the other customers. "Look," he said, his voice hardening as he stepped closer, invading her personal space in a way meant to intimidate. "We have certain standards here at Elite Motors. We cater to a certain clientele. I'm sure you understand." He gestured toward the door again, this time more forcefully. "Perhaps you should leave before this becomes uncomfortable for everyone." Elara stood her ground, the rich fabric of her gown catching the afternoon light as she raised her chin slightly. Years of breaking through glass ceilings had taught her when to bend and when to stand firm. She thought of the countless meetings where she had been the only woman, the only person of color, fighting to be heard and respected. This moment was no different. She was more than prepared for the challenge. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," she said, fully knowing his response. It was a calculated move designed to force Dorian to reveal the full extent of his prejudice. "I own this dealership," Dorian declared proudly, his chest puffing out. "And I'm asking you to leave now." When Elara didn't move, Dorian's face reddened, the flush creeping up from his collar to his hairline. "Security!" he called out, reaching for his phone with manicured fingers. "And I'm calling the police. We don't need your kind causing trouble here." The last words were spat out with particular venom, and the mask of civility completely dropped as the situation escalated. Elara remained calm, her mind already racing ahead to the potential consequences of Dorian's actions. She had faced discrimination before, but never so blatantly or publicly. Part of her wanted to reveal her identity to watch the color drain from Dorian's face as he realized his mistake, but a deeper, more strategic part of her knew that sometimes the most potent move was to allow your opponent to overplay their hand. The security guards appeared quickly, their faces uncomfortable but compliant as they flanked Elara. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived, their faces stern as Dorian spun a tale of disruption and aggression, painting himself as the victim of harassment and potential fraud. Despite Elara's calm attempts to explain the situation, she found herself being handcuffed, the cold metal pressing against her wrists behind her back, the beautiful silk of her gown bunching awkwardly with her arms restrained. Dorian's laughter followed her as the officers led her toward the door. "Next time, know your place," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Elara held her head high as she was escorted out, even as other customers stared and whispered. The handcuffs bit into her skin, but she refused to show any sign of distress. The wine silk of her gown seemed to deepen in color under the harsh fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the showroom's sterile whiteness, as she was led to the police car. A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth, a smile that would have worried Dorian Thompson incredibly had he noticed it. What he didn't know about Elara Bennett could fill volumes, and his ignorance was about to cost him dearly. 25 years ago, she had started as a junior accountant at a small firm, working grueling days while attending law school at night. Her husband, Jasper Sr., had passed away when their son, Jasper Jr., was just 2 years old, leaving her to raise him alone while pursuing her dreams of success in the financial world. As the police car pulled away from Elite Motors, Elara's mind wandered to those early days of struggle and determination. She remembered the tiny apartment she and young Jasper had shared, the nights she'd spent studying while her son slept peacefully nearby, the sacrifices she'd made, the prejudices she'd overcome, and the unwavering belief in herself that had carried her through the darkest times. Through sheer determination, brilliant financial acumen, and an unwavering vision, Elara built Bennett Financial Group from scratch, turning it into one of the most successful investment firms in the city. Her client list included professional athletes, entertainment moguls, and business titans who trusted her with billions in assets. However, her genuine pride and most outstanding achievement were her son, Jasper Bennett Jr. Jasper inherited his mother's sharp mind and determination, and his father's impressive height and athletic build. He graduated from law school with honors, specializing in corporate law and civil rights litigation. He quickly made a name for himself in corporate law, becoming known for his meticulous preparation and ruthless efficiency in the courtroom. At 32, he was already one of the youngest partners at Preston & Howard, the city's most prestigious law firm. Elara had raised Jasper with solid values, teaching him about dignity, respect, and the importance of standing up for what's right. She'd shown him how to turn discrimination into determination and fight for justice with intelligence rather than anger. Their Sunday dinners often became impromptu lessons about business strategy and social justice, with Elara sharing stories from her journey and Jasper absorbing every word. As the police station came into view, Elara thought about one particular Sunday dinner just after Jasper had won his first major case. They had sat on the terrace of her penthouse apartment, the city skyline glittering before them like a sea of possibilities. "Remember, son," she had said, swirling a glass of Cabernet, "true power isn't about making others feel small. It's about lifting others up, about changing the system from within." Jasper nodded, his eyes shining with admiration and understanding. It was a lesson that shaped his career, driving him to use his legal skills for personal gain and meaningful change. His specialty made Jasper particularly formidable in corporate acquisitions and discrimination law. He'd earned a reputation for dismantling companies that engaged in discriminatory practices, using the letter of the law like a surgical scalpel. His cases were legendary in legal circles, not just for their success, but for their thoroughness in exposing systemic discrimination and forcing corporate change through legal pressure and public exposure. But today, as Elara sat in the police station waiting to be processed, her elegant gown out of place among the harsh fluorescent lights and metal benches, she wasn't thinking about her success or her son's achievements. She was thinking about justice and how it sometimes arrives in unexpected ways. She thought about all the others who had faced similar treatment, but lacked the resources to fight back. Her humiliation would serve a greater purpose. It would become a lesson that Dorian Thompson and others like him wouldn't soon forget. As she waited, Elara's mind was already formulating a plan. She thought about the networks she had built over the years and the alliances she had forged with other powerful women and minorities in the business world. She thought about the media contacts who would be very interested in hearing about a prominent CEO's treatment at an exclusive car dealership. She thought about the legal strategies she and Jasper would craft together, turning this indignity into a catalyst for change. The suit that made Dorian S. look off the rack in comparison, his dark skin seemed to glow with health and confidence, and his smile was both professional and slightly predatory, reminiscent of a shark who had just spotted its prey. "Mr. Thompson," Jasper Bennett said, extending his hand, his Harvard ring catching the light. "I believe you met my mother last week, Elara Bennett, the woman you had arrested for attempting to purchase an Aston Martin." The color drained from Dorian's face as recognition dawned, the memory of his actions suddenly playing back in vivid, uncomfortable detail. His hand trembled, and his face turned pale as he reached for the papers Jasper had placed on his desk with deliberate precision. "This is a notice of legal action against Elite Motors for discrimination, false imprisonment, and defamation," Jasper explained, carrying the weight of years of legal experience and promising future consequences. "I'm also filing separate complaints with the Consumer Protection Bureau and the Civil Rights Commission. My team has already gathered statements from witnesses present that day, including several of your regular customers who were, shall we say, disturbed by your behavior." Dorian's mouth went dry as he scanned the documents, his eyes widening at the detailed allegations and the potential damages listed. "Now see here, there must be some misunderstanding," he stammered, his earlier confidence evaporating like morning dew under a harsh sun. "Oh, I understand perfectly," Jasper interrupted smoothly, adjusting his platinum cufflinks, a gift from his mother on his first significant legal victory. "I understand that you had my mother, Elara Bennett, CEO of Bennett Financial Group, handcuffed and arrested for trying to purchase a car from your dealership. I understand that you laughed while it happened, and I understand that your actions violated at least 15 state and federal laws." He paused, letting each word land with precision. "I also understand that this isn't the first time you've displayed such behavior. My firm has already been contacted by 3 other individuals with similar experiences at your dealership." As Jasper spoke, memories of his childhood flashed through his mind. He remembered watching his mother work tirelessly, building her business from the ground up. He recalled the nights she'd come home exhausted but still found time to help him with his homework and teach him about resilience and integrity. The lessons she'd imparted weren't just about success in business, but about using that success to make a difference in the world. Dorian's face had gone from pale to ashen. "Bennett Financial Group," he whispered, the name finally registering in his mind and its implications. "Yes," Jasper confirmed, a smile playing on his lips that matched his mother's from a week ago. "The same Bennett Financial Group that, as of this morning, owns a controlling interest in Luxury Motors International, your parent company." He paused to let that sink in. "Mother always taught me to invest wisely. It's amazing what you can accomplish with the right strategy and patience." Dorian collapsed into his leather chair, his laughter from a week ago replaced with shocked silence. The awards on his walls suddenly seemed to mock him, testimonies to a success built on prejudice and privilege that was about to come crashing down. "You'll be hearing from the corporate board this afternoon," Jasper continued, straightening his cuffs deliberately. "But I wanted to deliver this personally. Mother also taught me about the importance of looking people in the eye when delivering important news." His voice carried no anger, just the calm certainty of justice being served. As Jasper spoke, he thought about the countless times he had seen his mother face adversity with grace and determination. He remembered her pride when he decided to specialize in civil rights law alongside corporate acquisitions. Standing in Dorian Thompson's office, this moment felt like the culmination of everything she had taught him about business, law, and fighting injustice with intelligence and strategy rather than brute force. Dorian's mind raced, searching for a way out, for some explanation or excuse that could salvage his position. But as he looked at Jasper Bennett impeccably dressed and radiating quiet confidence, he realized the magnitude of his error. This wasn't just about one woman he had misjudged. It was about a systemic problem that had finally caught up with him. "Mr. Bennett," Dorian began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Surely we can come to some arrangement. I never meant to, that is, I didn't realize." Jasper held up a hand, silencing Dorian mid-sentence. "Mr. Thompson, the time for arrangements and excuses has passed. What happens next will be decided by the board and the courts. I suggest you use this time to reflect on how you've conducted business and treated people. Perhaps some good can come from this situation if you learn from it." As Jasper turned to leave, he paused at the door, his hand resting on the polished handle. "Oh, and Mr. Thompson," he said, with a slight smile, "Mother decided to purchase her Aston Martin from your competitor across town. They were much more accommodating." His smile widened slightly. "In fact, she bought two, one for herself and one for me. We'll be sure to drive past here occasionally just to admire the view." The door closed behind Jasper with a quiet click, leaving Dorian Thompson alone with his regrets. His face was as pale as the papers that would soon end his career. The sound of his own laughter from that day echoed in his memory. Still, it sounded hollow and haunted, reminding him how quickly fortunes can change when justice finds its mark. In the following weeks, the story of Elara Bennett's experience at Elite Motors made headlines. It sparked a national conversation about racial profiling in high-end retail spaces and the persistent barriers faced by people of color in accessing luxury goods and services. Elara found herself flooded with messages of support from people who had faced similar discrimination but lacked the resources to fight back. Seizing the moment, Elara and Jasper launched a foundation dedicated to providing legal assistance to victims of racial discrimination in consumer settings. They used the publicity from the Elite Motors case to raise awareness and funds, turning a personal front into a movement for change. Meanwhile, Elite Motors underwent a complete overhaul. Under pressure from Bennett Financial Group and facing a PR nightmare, the board implemented sweeping changes. They instituted mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all employees, revised their hiring practices to ensure a more diverse workforce, and established a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Dorian Thompson, stripped of his ownership and facing multiple lawsuits, was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. As he watched his carefully built empire crumble, he began to understand the true cost of his prejudice, not just in financial terms, but also in the opportunities lost and the people he had hurt along the way. In her new Aston Martin, Elara Bennett smiled as she drove past Elite Motors one last time, the engine purring smoothly beneath her. She taught her son well, not just about business and law, but about something more important. Justice served cold was still justice served, and sometimes the most elegant revenge was simply showing others the consequences of their actions.